This tutorial explains how to use the EmbLetters application, which allows you to enter pre-digitized lettering into its workspace and save it as an embroidery file. Initially, when you open the application, you will notice that there are no fonts in the font list, and one has to add embroidery alphabets in order to use the application. To do this and to add any other fonts subsequently, click on the Add Font button. And initially, since there are no fonts to edit or to remove from the font list, click on the Add button. And this will show you a display of folders on your computer. Notice I've arranged all my alphabet folders under a folder called Alphabets, and each one of these alphabet folders contains a separate alphabet. For this example, I'm going to use the Arial 13mm alphabet, which I click the folder name on, and I click OK. And you can see that all the embroidery letters in that font folder have now been entered into the workspace in white below the yellow instructional part of the application. The first step that we have to do in order to add this alphabet to our font list is to click on one of the letters and set up a font mapping. To do this, I'll click on the letter A and I'll hold down the Shift A key on my keyboard, and now the keyboard letters will appear above the letters in the alphabet in the font folder. Notice that all the letters have been automatically added, even though I just clicked the A. Often this is as simple as you need to do, but sometimes some letters might be missing or out of order, and you would have to readjust the font mapping. I'll show you that in the next example. Similarly, I'm going to add the lowercase letters. It doesn't matter which one I choose. There'll be an auto completion done. So I'll click on the lowercase c, and notice that the A and the B as well as the D and the subsequent letters have now been automatically added. After we set up the keyboard mapping, the next thing to do is to adjust the baseline, which is the red line on each line of letters. The baseline is the imaginary line on which the bottom of each letter should rest. So to do this, following the instructions for adjusting the baseline, I click on a white space, which doesn't include a letter. Let me see if I can find one here. And now I'm going to use the up and down arrow keys on the keyboard to raise and lower the baseline until all the letters, or as many of them as possible, lie on that baseline. Notice that all the capital letters lie on the baseline with this simple adjustment, but you'll notice that the A and the lowercase c, the lowercase a and c, are both above the baseline. So to correct that, I now need to click on the letter A, lowercase a, and I lower it with the arrow keys on my keyboard. Similarly with the letter C. And now all my letters are mapped to the keyboard and they're adjusted to the baseline. When I'm finished doing this, I can, for example, I could rename this alphabet. So if I don't like the 13mm in the name, I could just call it Arial. So I edit the font name in the font box. And when I'm finished doing that, I click Save, and this will save that alphabet. Now, while I'm in this alphabet editor, I can add an additional font. So I click Add, and let me choose a font for which it requires a little more work to set up the font mapping, and I'll choose this alphabet folder called Brits Easter Alphabet. And again, the first thing I'm going to do is map these letters. So notice now that the names of these letters must be something strange because the editor did not order them properly. So let's start with the letter C here. Hold down the Shift C, and you can see up to the letter F the font mapping is correct, but after that it's wrong. And in particular, this should be a capital I, so I hit Shift I. This should be a capital L instead of an H. There should be a capital M. There should be a capital U. And you can see what I'm doing here. And I would go through all of the letters in the alphabet in this similar fashion until they're all mapped correctly. I won't do them all here for this example. The next thing is click on a white space and adjust the baseline. And you can see now all the capital letters are on the baseline. And when I've set the mapping the way I want it to be and the baseline, then I could click on the Save button, and that font is now saved. So let's close the editor now. I've added 2 fonts, but notice one thing is I only have to do this font mapping once per alphabet. Once I've set up the mapping and once I've adjusted the baseline, I can go back and edit anything in that font file, but I don't have to do it again unless there's something incorrect that I want to adjust. So I'm going to close this, and you'll notice now in the font box there are 2 fonts, the Arial font and the Brits Easter alphabet font. So let's choose the Arial font, and I'll type in a few letters in the Arial font like A, B, C, A, B, C. If I want to change my font, I would go to another font in the list and I choose an A, and you can see now why the baseline is so important, because this alphabet, the Brits alphabet, the letters are much larger than in the small Arial alphabet. In order to align the baseline on these things, it's really significant to do that. When I'm finished adding the letters I want, I can go to the Save button. And actually what I want to do is go to the Save As button because I want to give this a name. And I will save this in a folder on my a file on my desktop. I can choose the embroidery file type that I want. Let's choose a brother file, and I'll call this test, for example. And I save this file as a test PES file. And now that's all there is to it. You can close this, and that's it.